This myth can be found in the Skålskaparmál, just after Ifin's apples and Skarfi's wedding. So for the moment we're simply following the myths in the order Snorri wrote them in his Prose Edda. You can also find this myth, slightly less expanded, in the Hovamál of the Poetic Edda. This is set at the beginning of times, when the Æsir and the Vanir were still at war. When the Æsir and the Vanir decided to make peace, they all spat into a vat as a symbol of good faith. Now, this might seem a weird way to say we won't fight anymore, but actually, spitting into the same recipient as a peacemaking tradition has historical roots. During the 19th century, ethnologists found proof of those practices, notably with the Tatar people. Once everyone had spat in the same jar, the Æsir decided it would be a shame to let this peace symbol go to waste. Out of the spittle they carved Kvasir, a god who, despite being made of spit, turns out to be very wise. He was so wise, actually, that there was no question he couldn't answer. So, don't underestimate your saliva. Kvasir is sometimes thought to be the personification of kvass, an alcoholic drink of Russia and Central Europe. In some versions, Kvasir isn't made of spit, but he's given to the Æsir with Freyja Njord as a proof of good faith. My suspicion is that that version was invented by Kvasir himself, so people stopped laughing at him and calling him Spittles. Kvasir then travelled around the world, being an insufferable know-it-all, telling people to ask him questions so he could show them how smart he was. One day, he was a guest to the dwarves Fjalar and Galar. Both dwarves couldn't stand the smarty pants, and so they killed him. They poured Kvasir's blood into the vats Sorn, Bothna, and then everything that was left into a kettle called Othrerir. They blended honey with the blood, and from this mixture they made mead. The mead was magical, and anyone who drank it would become a poet or a scholar. As often, the dwarves here are the makers of powerful, magical items. They're the ones who first brewed the mead of poetry. When the Æsir noticed Kvasir had disappeared, they asked the dwarves what had happened. Fjalar answered confidently that Kvasir had choked on his own knowledge, because no one was there to ask him smart questions. The Æsir, who couldn't stand a smarty pants either, accepted this explanation. I would like to show you how anti-chronological these myths are, and how difficult it is to choose an order for them. Despite Kvasir dying very early on, he will still be alive before Ragnarök, when the gods need to run after Loki and tie him down with Narfi's guts. He's the one who helps the Æsir build a net to catch Loki and bring him back to justice after Baldr's murder. Although all of that, we suppose, happens after the Æsir have obtained the mead of poetry. Back to the story. Fjalar and Galar weren't very good hosts. After having murdered Kvasir, they invited the Jotun Gillinger and his wife. The myth doesn't tell us what Gillinger did that got on their nerves, but they decided to get rid of him. They invited him out to sea, and while he was with them on their boat, they overturned their small skip. The giant couldn't swim and drowned, but the dwarfs could, so they waited until he'd sunk to put the boat back straight and climb back into it. When they told Gillinger's wife of her husband's death, she wailed loudly. Fjalar couldn't stand whinging, so he told his brother Galar to go and stand on the roof in front of the main door with a millstone. To Gillinger's wife he said, "Look, will it make you feel better if I show you the spot where Gillinger died?" The wife said yes, and as Fjalar led her outside, Galar dropped the millstone on her head. It killed her. Suttungr was Gillinger's son. In some myths, he's called Gillinger's Rofjordsson, the son of his brother, in other words, Gillinger's nephew. Whatever the specific ties, Suttungr was a member of Gillinger's family. Contrary to the Æsir, he did not buy the, "Oh, but they went sunbathing on the beach and the tide came in too fast, nothing we could do," excuse the dwarves came up with. He was furious. He picked up both dwarves and put them on a barren rock which would soon be covered by the high tide. He left them there to die. The dwarves could swim, but they couldn't swim well enough to get back to the shore. "Please spare us," said the dwarves. "Look, we can pay a compensation for the death of your parents. We can give you the mead of poetry." Suttungr thought about this. Alcohol, the lives of my parents. The lives of my parents, alcohol. "We've got 3 jars, and you only had 2 parents," said Fjalar. "It's a good deal." "Yeah, you're right," said Suttungr. "Go for it." So Suttungr took the mead and put the dwarves back on the shore. He hid the mead under the mountain Hnitbjörn, guarded by his daughter Gunnlaug. "Whatever happens, don't let anyone drink from it," he told her. "No worries, Dad," said Gunnlaug. Most kennings for poetry are referenced in this myth. For example, Kvasir's blood, the drink of the dwarves, the liquid of Othrerir, Bothn or Son, the ship of the dwarves, Sutunger's mead, Hnitbjorg's liquid. Now on the other side of the world, Odin was thinking. He thought, you know what would be neat? Mead of poetry would be neat. And it's nearly ours anyway, as I heard those stupid dwarves mention they brewed it out of Kvasir's blood. Kvasir is mostly my own spit, so I'm pretty sure he belongs to me. So Odin decided to fetch the mead of poetry and bring it back to the Æsir. He decided to use the name Bolverkar and set off for Jotunheimr. He didn't go to Suttungur's house. He thought Suttungur was a bit too intelligent to be fooled. He looked for the weak link in Suttungur's defense and decided the best choice was Suttungur's brother, Baugi, who didn't seem to be the sharpest tool in the drawer. As he was heading for Baugi's house, Bolverkar found 9 slaves working in Baugi's fields. They needed to sharpen their scythes to cut wheat. Bolverkar lent them his whetstone. Why they didn't have a whetstone of their own is never made clear, but even if they'd had one, it wouldn't have mattered. Bolverkar's whetstone was so great, it beat all whetstones that came before it. The scythes were sharp in no time. The slaves found it so good they all wanted to buy it. Bolverkar said, yeah, sure, whoever wants it can pay me whatever they feel like to have it. I'm not bothered. And with those words, he threw the whetstone into the air. The slaves rushed to catch the stone, like women at a wedding trying to catch the bridal bouquet, but they didn't drop their scythes before they started running in circles. They were so clumsy, and the scythes were so sharp, that they cut each other's throats as they tried to catch the whetstone. It would be nobler to say that they all fought to death over it, but it seemed that's not what happened. They were just so useless, they killed each other without meaning to. People have tried to make sense of this scene, and some believe it's a later addition, which wasn't there in the original myth. Some people link it to ritual dances done to celebrate the harvest, or maybe the slaves are a metaphor for the wheat, as their heads cut off could be a parallel for the ear of wheat we cut off at harvest time. Whatever the reason, the slaves were all dead. Bolverkar walked to Baugi's house. Although the name Bringer of Sorrow should have given Baugi a hint, he didn't think twice before inviting Bolverkar into his house. Soon he was complaining about the loss of his slaves. Those idiots have managed to slit their own throats. Leave them alone 2 minutes and the next thing you know they're all dead. You just can't find the staff these days. I can do the work of 9 men, said Bolverkar. Are you going to want the pay of 9 men too? Asked Baugi suspiciously, proving he wasn't so dumb after all. No, said Bolverkar, I'm very cheap. I just want a sip of the magical mead your brother Suttungur has. By Othin's backside, rumours travel fast, said Baugi. Okay, let's do that. If you work for me this summer and help me bring in the harvest, I'll ask my brother to give you some of his mead. So Bolverkar set to work helping Baugi. He was as efficient as 9 men, and he laboured hard all summer to get the harvest in. He also worked most of autumn, and it's only once winter had settled that he went to Baugi and asked for his pay. Baugi went with Bolverkar to Suttungur. Hey bro, he said, this guy would like a sip of your mead. I promised him the drink as his wages. What do you think? I think no, said Suttungur. Oh, said Baugi, even if I say please? I've worked very hard, said Bolverkar, who had. Suttungur shrugged. You really should have thought of that before Baugi promised you something that wasn't his to give. Who could have expected it? Not even the king of the gods had seen this coming. Suttungur just saying no. It was a bit of a setback, but Bolverkar wasn't one for accepting defeat. He would find a way to get Suttungur's mead off him, whether the giant agreed to it or not. Hi everyone, I hope you enjoyed this myth. This is the first half of the story of Kvasir's blood, and how the gods tried to steal it off the giants who had stolen it off the dwarves. In a fortnight we'll have the Mead of Poetry, also called Odin Needs a Better Plan. If you like the story, please leave a like or subscribe, and don't hesitate to tell me in the comments which myth you'd like to hear next. I've had a request for Lokasena, so I'll do that, and if there's anything else you'd like, just ask. Cheers!